All right, guys, welcome back to Singles Connect podcast. It's another amazing day serving great content, talking about relationships, building healthy, steady, wholesome relationships in our community. And we are singles, yes, discussing these matters, preparing ourselves for the future if and when God releases us into that position. But right now, we're fully excited and embracing our singlehood and using it to the good of our community by sharing these topics. Welcome. I'm so excited. If this is your first time, we're so glad you're here. If you're watching us on YouTube, do the needful. Make sure you subscribe, turn the notification button on that little bell on the side. And most importantly, we want you to like this video, leave us a comment below what your thoughts are on the episode, and also share. There is love in sharing. And of course, connect with us, get social with us, spend your free social currency our way, and we will be happy to return the favor. We are also on Instagram, Singles Connect Community Podcast. Go over there, follow us, like, engage yourself in our amazing content, and we will be so glad to have you become a part of our community. All right, I'm so glad to be here today with my beautiful co host. We are missing one person today. Our third leg is not here, but we are definitely going to give you a great show. Welcome, sis. How are you, Stacy?
I am good, Dr. OJ. How are you doing this Saturday?
I am wonderful. It's a beautiful Saturday. It's the
It
beginning of
is.
March and it's the
Yes,
beginning of International Women's Month.
yes, it is. And it's also the beginning of Lent and
Yes,
Ramadan
yes.
starts this month too. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, we're in a really good space. Spiritual enlightenment, spiritual exercises going on all over the place, and celebrations going on all over the place. I was just thinking of my social media calendar and the content that I posted for this month. Started out the month looking
Hmm.
at the theme for the month of March, International Women's Day. I went on the United Nations website, and this year the theme is accelerate action. Just focusing
Hmm.
on moving women forward and moving the needle forward. And I started to think, how can we as women work together to accelerate all of the things that we have been doing? We have fought for equity, we have fought for so many things, and I believe we finally have them. However, I feel like there is a missing link because a lot of the things that we have fought for and we have now it's sort of like working against us. So is it lack of us establishing
Hmm.
boundaries? I'm just trying to tie it into our topic for today to ensure that we have the right boundaries in place to not only protect ourselves, but to also figure out the best way for people to come into our space. So that is what we want to discuss today. Today we're talking about establishing boundaries in relationships. So let's get into it, Stacy. What does that look like to you? Establishing boundaries in relationships.
Well, I think for me, when it comes to setting boundaries in a relationship, and I'm going to, Akan is not here. So, Akan, when you listen to the rebroadcast of this, again, I'm going to use your famous quote to talking about self awareness
Mhm.
because I think in order for one to be able to set boundaries, is you have to know yourself. You
Yes.
have to know exactly what is it, the why, who you are, and the why of why you're setting boundaries in a relationship. And boundaries are important because you are setting boundaries so that way people know how to treat you. You know the famous
Mhm.
quote that said, "People treat you how you allow, or you, well, no, the famous quote is, you teach people how to treat you."
Mhm.
So in essence, the way that the standards that you set for yourself, which in other words is boundaries, is the way people show up in your life. So you have to be clear about those boundaries. But you also, before you can start making those boundaries, you also have to become self-aware. You have to know yourself. So you know how you want to be loved. You know how you want someone to speak to you. You know how you want somebody to treat you. You know how you want somebody to handle you. Because all of us, at some point in our life, we have been dropped, we have been mishandled, we
Mhm.
have been rejected, we have been abandoned, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't some and it, those things too don't oftentimes happen in romantic relationship. It happened in our upbringing. But our parents, a lot of them did the very best that they could with the resources, the knowledge, and the education that they have, and also what they knew. So some of us are carrying scars from that, because a lot of times I think people think that whenever you talk about boundaries or you talk about relationship, they only think about one type of relationship, when we're having multiple relationship throughout our lives, throughout our everyday lives, relationship with our siblings, relationship with our friends or coworkers or significant others, our parents. So it's not just your spouse you need to set boundaries with. You need to set boundaries with everyone, and to me, what it does is that it helps to lessen the disrespect. It also lessens the aggravation, the annoyance, and then sometimes the blow-ups that happen with
Mhm.
family and friends, or even the significant others, because you bottle everything up. You never set those healthy boundaries. You
Mm.
never express to anyone exactly how you want to be handled, how you want to be loved, how you want to be spoken to. So now people take, um, I don't want to say liberties, but yeah,
They
I guess
do
you
take
can call
liberties.
say
Say it.
liberties with you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like for me.
I love what you said, and I'm going to segue from what you said into my next line of thought. I was having
Mm-hmm.
a conversation yesterday, and just looking at the whole atmosphere of single people, and one of my older, friends, aunties, as we call them in Africa, and she was like, like she feels like I'm in a really good place. That
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even just being able to establish yourself, even as a single person, and just doing the things that I'm doing, and just being able to have a lot of autonomy over the choices and the decisions that we're making really gives us some type of peace of mind, rather than the alternative where a lot of people who, and this was talking about women who had been married, now divorced,
Mm-hmm.
then trying to get into possibly a second opportunity to be married again. And we were looking at just examples of many people that we know who have taken the second leap, but they did not take caution. They did not set the proper boundaries. And I said something to her. I said, Auntie, look at it this way. And this is where God has walked with me on. And I say this not to
Mm-hmm.
judge or to look down on anyone. I said, to the point where I've stayed single now 8 years and counting. And to some, it was like, what's the problem? Like, what could really be wrong? Nothing is wrong. I am absolutely whole, full, and complete in
Mm-hmm.
who I am. However, I haven't come into contact with a person who can who can model the example of the kind of love that I have grown to love, which is the love of God. I
Mm-hmm.
said, God loves us as
Mm-hmm.
his children. He sacrifices for us, and he sacrificed the greatest level of sacrifice, which he says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. I know he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean husbands have to literally die, but just
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
yourself in a position where a lot of yourself is, you're dying to self. You're not thinking
It
of
is.
yourself, you are thinking of your partner. I said
Mm-hmm.
that is the example of the love that I believe I deserve. Of course, we have all fallen into the trap of letting people take liberties where they come
Yes.
into our space and they do anyhow and they act any kind of
Mm-hmm.
way. However, one of the things that I am grateful for is, even though just like a lot of people have fallen into that trap, I have been able to successfully redeem myself by the help of God. It's not easy, because when you look at the alternative, it's you're going to be alone by yourself, maybe for a while, before
Mm-hmm.
you're able to even come across someone who slightly fits the bill of all of this criteria that we're saying. And to some people out there, they'll be like, "Oh, doctor, oh, that's a lot. That's a tall order. That's not a human standard you're setting." But think about it though. There are sons of God and daughters of God who actually are committed to doing that. And they're doing it because people actually have that model of marriage and relationship where husband and wife, they're serving each other in their capacity, submitting to one another, dying to self and living for the good of the other person, and sacrificing and serving and doing all that is needed. I said, so for me, that has become the standard. So when I identify red flags, as we call them, which is a standard below what this acceptable level of criteria is, I have to inevitably remove myself from it. Because first of all, I can't change you and make you into that standard or that acceptable thing. That's not my
Mm-hmm.
job. So now it becomes you're too picky. You're too you're asking for too much. It's not possible. Everyone has to make a compromise. Again, with these boundaries, with compromise. Y'all need to stop coming with us at this compromise thing. Like I told someone, I said compromises. We trying to buy a car and we're deciding we want to buy a used car to save money rather than buying a brand new car that depreciates 10-20% once we drive it off the lot, and we've been out of pocket a lot of money. That to me is compromise. Compromise is, oh baby, we want to buy a house. Okay, how much house can we afford right now? Let's buy this so that we can manage our resources and have enough left over to invest. But compromise is not you saying, I can't communicate with you. Oh, you got to compromise that. This is just the way I am. I don't communicate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like today, look, we're like gonna just, since it's Stacy and I, we're gonna let it all out on the table. Like those boundaries from me, don't come at me and say you have to compromise. Oh, he's not a good provider. Honey, no, you got to provide because that's what my father does for me. He provides for me. So if you're going
Right.
to come take me, well, you're not taking me away from him, but if you're going to come ask my hand in marriage and say, oh, I want to be with your daughter, well, you
Hmm.
got to fit the bill of what my father was doing for me. So for me,
Right.
that is not compromise. So let's stop asking each other to make those compromises that actually do not fit the bill of a successful relationship. Because as I round up, and I can go, honey, you know me. People make those compromises and they get into these marriages, Stacy. And
Yeah.
then at some point, maybe a couple of years, when they are not able to handle, like their body cannot hold that compromise again, then they now
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm done. Now you have two failed marriages, three failed marriages, four failed marriages, because you kept on going with this idea of I gotta compromise. There is a difference between setting healthy boundaries, setting a high standard that is it's like norm, it's the norm. Let's stop normalizing mediocrity in relationships and making it seem like the people who want those things are high maintenance. They are whatever, whatever. Anyway, boundaries. Those are my those
Well,
are my boundaries. I'm not settling for that.
I love what you had to say, Dr. OJ. That was very insightful. I see you had some things to get off your chest today.
Yes, yes.
So, but you know what? As you say, let's elevate and stop promoting mediocrity. What came to mind is, okay, shout out to John Hope. So John Hope has a popular saying that he likes to say, let's make smart popular again whenever he starts his video. And I just love it. I just love when he starts. He
Mhm.
has an amazing foundation, by the way, guys. But anyways, I'm with Dr. OJ that I think we need to start normalizing certain things and stop making it seem as if the basic, to me these are like basic human structure that you're asking for, and I people make it look like you're asking for the moon and the stars when you're simply asking just for just common human basic things. And yes, I understand and I acknowledge that all of us start in life has not been smooth, hasn't been this is not the same. Some
Mhm.
of us were afforded more opportunities than others. Some of us grew up in a two-parent household while some of
Mhm.
us didn't. Some of us had the big aunties, grandmas and the grandpas and the uncles and everything to, the village to help usher us through life. However, I think at some point though, we all have to become adults. We all have to become accountable for our own action and the course that we want to see and the projection and the direction that our life should take. So whenever which is the why, as Dr. OJ brought up the good book, it says once a man, twice a child. When you become a man, you put away childish things,
Mhm.
which to me means at some point you take accountability for your own life, your own actions. You stop the blame game. And whatever it is that you did not see, although it didn't get modeled for you, I'm sure if you investigate, if you took the time and look, you can find resources to help you become what you want to be and the model that is preferred. And when I say preferred, I mean just if you think about it this way, if you have a son or a daughter, the same things that I'm pretty sure you would not want for your daughter,
Mhm.
then subscribe to not do being that to other women. And the same thing goes for women. The same things that you complain about men and what men are not doing, I would implore you, women, because you're the one that 95% of you are the one that are raising these children.
Yes.
So I would implore you to make sure that the things that you're complaining about is maybe some of the things you try to instill in these young men that you're raising. And
Mhm.
I'm going to give you a basic example because I'm going to bring it down to practicality so
Yes.
you can
Yes.
understand what I am saying when I say that. Because I know that there's a point, certain stage in a young man's life where he definitely needs his father, his
Mhm.
mother, his aunt, his grandmother, his big sis. None of them can help him when he gets to a certain point. He needs a male figure. He needs them to hear a male voice. He needs to talk to a man. But I'm talking about the basic respect of how you, the tone in which you talk to a woman, knowing that you never put your hand on a woman no matter how angry you are. It's
Mhm.
better you get in a car and you drive away, or you go take a walk. The simple thing of I have no responsibilities, that women are not just created to be kitchen maids, helpers. So you know how to help yourself. So you, when you find your mate, you are a contributor in the relationship. And that too can be based on how your dynamic and household is set up. But I am just saying that though you have some men that feels like they have no form of domestic responsibility, even if their wife is drowning in tiredness, overworked,
Mhm.
and all of that stuff. So I'm just saying, ladies, the basic things you can get your boys to do. Don't sit in the car while they're on the phone while you're in the grocery store stop shopping, and then you come back out and you got to load the grocery up yourself, and they're sitting in the car, and you pumping gas while your child is sitting in the car on the phone. Like, these are common things. They learn life skills. And
Mhm.
when they get up in the morning and they see you, good morning, mom, good afternoon, good night, mom, those things, they walk in a house, and they don't even acknowledge you, they don't see you, and it's like, oh, women are just, we're just here for your pleasure.
Nah.
So that's what I mean when I say the practical things that we can help with, that you can
Mhm.
instill, the mannerism, those type of things, you
Mhm.
know, those things. And those are, to me, are not just life skills you're teaching them, but you're also setting boundaries. You're
Yes.
teaching them discipline, responsibilities, and boundaries. That, listen, I want you to grow up to be a productive member of society, and you can help yourself. You know how to do a load of laundry. You know how to, even if you can't make a 6 course meal, you can do
Mhm.
something at
Yeah.
some point. You can boil water. Boundaries, again, as I said, this is not just about romantic relationship, but you set boundaries too, with your children, with your siblings, with your family, your friends. You teach people how to treat you and how to love you and how to show up around you.
Absolutely. I love the part where we're taking this discussion into our other relationships, because it's not just
Hmm.
about romantic relationships. The
Yeah.
world has gone to the point today where you see some parents making excuses for their kids while they're
Yes.
so ill mannered. And I'm like, there's no excuse in the book, any book. I don't care if it's the good book or the bad book. There's no excuse. It is your responsibility to show those children and teach them and enforce it, because it's one thing to teach, but as a parent, it's a lifetime. It's You see, even when kids are older and they're trying to get out of line, and the daughter-in-law says, "Mama, your son is this and this," and I keep telling my boys, I said, "Look, if any of your spouses will call me and complain about certain things that I know in my own good church woman mind that I have taught you, child, you gonna get
Yes.
it. I don't care how old you are then. You can be the father of children, the husband of a woman. Your mother will come. I will cut you down. I will get you. Because I will not let you disgrace and disappoint the name of God when you get out there. I have done the work to show you not just the way of God, but I've shown you the way of life. All of my boys, well, fortunately, I'm a boy mom. They do laundry. They do, like, literally in this house. I do stuff, but the bare minimum, because I've raised them to take on those responsibilities and fill those
Hmm.
roles. Even when we have morning devotion, now I'm grooming them to take on the role of leadership in leading worship, in leading devotion. I'm like, who's going to lead
Hmm.
today? Because that's their priestly training. I got to teach them to be
Yes.
the priest of their
Of their
household.
home.
So it
Hmm.
is our job to do that, so that those boundaries, they know there's certain boundaries they don't cross. You don't cross certain boundaries when it comes to the things of God. You don't cross certain boundaries when it comes to family. You don't cross certain boundaries when it comes to your work. Like, seriously, you take it seriously. So all
Hmm.
of these things, as humans, it's important for us to set these boundaries correctly in different areas of our lives. And one of the things, one very interesting quote that I heard and I want to share today when it comes to this boundaries thing is this guy, he's a pastor, I forgot his name now. Very, very, very great guy. I love him so much. And we're talking about the fact that show me a man or a woman with so many friends. Like, let's just say you have over 10 close friends.
Hmm.
And I will show you a person who lacks discernment, who lacks boundaries, and who lacks discipline. And I was like, woo, that is so true. Because there is no way that you are going to maintain that huge, large crowd of people in close proximity if you do have boundaries. Because what boundaries does, it helps you to eliminate things that are not for you
Hmm.
and keeps in the things that are for you.
Yes. That is very true, Dr. OJ. That's an interesting quote, and that's food for thought. But he's absolutely right. The boundaries set the tone of what somebody is allowed to do. If we want to give it a definition, it really, for a community here that are joining us or that may be listening, it's really that tone that you set for yourself too, because these are, and your boundaries too can be your non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you guys are aware, it could be your things that are part of your core value. Like, these are the things I cannot absolutely tolerate. These are the things that I have to have in order to thrive at 100% capacity of who I am as a person, or how you want me to show up for you. If you want me to be fully engaged, if you want me to communicate effectively, if you want me to show an interest, if you want me to stay motivated, encouraged, then I need for you to do certain things in order to feed my spirit, in order to feed my soul, so you can reap the harvest of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard too when you're giving and giving and giving. When somebody keep draining you, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't get the reciprocity where it's being reciprocated, or the your reservoir is also being filled. And as I said, guys, you can think about all of this in a romantic setting, but
Of
I am telling you, it happens too in every relationships that you're having. You have your siblings that don't know boundaries. Some of them take you for granted, that don't see you, that constantly acts of you, or family members. But these are still, again, things that you allow. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to speak up. You have to
course.
say, at some point, I can't do this, I don't have the capacity to do this, or I'm tired, or I'm overwhelmed, or I need help, or but you have to figure out exactly what those boundaries look like for you. And I said they can come from your core values, they can come from just the way you want to be loved and treated, and but you also, you cannot to get upset with the people in your life that you think are violating your boundaries when you have not communicated them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to effectively, and when I say effectively, I mean effectively communicate to the people in your life exactly what that looks like, and when you do this or when you do that, how it affects me, what triggers go off from me, and that's what caused me maybe to react in an angry way or irrational way. Because some of us think by just saying, oh, I don't like that, is communicating. That is not communicating, ladies and gentlemen. That is not communicating. Communicating is, listen, my brother, my sister, listen, my husband, my fiance, my boyfriend, whomever. Whenever you say this, or you speak to me in this tone, or you raise your voice, or if I call you and you don't pick up the phone and hours goes by and I text and you do not respond, it triggers this. This comes from this place of whether it's your childhood, past relationship, and it triggers abandonment for me, it triggers rejection, and my mind goes to the south. And I start to act crazy. And if you don't want me to act crazy and go off on you irrationally, I would appreciate it if you would not raise your voice. You will not shout at me. You will respond to my text message, or you will return my phone call in a timely manner. And I understand people are busy, but you can simply shoot a text and say, baby, I
I'm
can't
just,
talk to you right now. I'm in the middle of a meeting. I'll call you
mhm,
back in 20 or 30 minutes or an hour or two, whatever the case is. But when you don't pick up, and then somebody else is now, mine is going haywire, like what is happening, especially if this is a pattern for you guys. People establish pattern too of behavior. If this is someone that you're constantly talking to, you're constantly around, you're hearing from the person, and then one little thing in that pattern goes off, you know what the first thing that we our mind do as the human brain? It goes to start thinking about the negative things. It
mhm.
is not thinking about how wonderful you are. It
Nope.
is triggering all the things that you could possibly be doing wrong as to why you're not available. I
Mhm.
promise you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am simple saying, and I'm imploring with you, figure out your communication style. And it shouldn't be shouting or yelling, because you never get anything achieved or done, and you can't hear each other or understand each other with the yelling and the shouting. You have a calm, collective conversation. And if you guys need to say, I can't address this right now, I need 24 hours, I need 48 hours, and then we can come back to it. I think that is also fair. So that way you can have a rational, intelligent conversation and listen to each other, instead of two people yelling and fighting and screaming, and you got nothing resolved, and nobody knows what each other wants.
You know what? That's so amazing. Setting boundaries in relationships is important. And the reality of the matter is when it comes to setting boundaries, even when we look at parents, children, spouses, friends, it's a two-way street. So
Mm-hmm.
while you're setting your boundaries, it's important for you to recognize and respect boundaries of others. Like, for example, with my kids, their boundaries, some of like each of them, I know what their boundaries are. Like, basically, I mean, there's the one that doesn't like to be yelled at all, no matter what the situation is. He just wants you to talk to him. Although we sometimes cannot manage that. Sometimes we just got to yell. But then
Mm-hmm.
I
Correct.
always bring it back to the place of, hey, just try to communicate with him the way that I know that he would respond. And understanding their boundaries are just as important as my boundaries, so that way everybody feels seen, heard, and understood. And that's what would allow that relationship to thrive. So now
Mm-hmm.
let's look at boundaries from a whole different perspective, Stacy. When we talk about setting boundaries, how do you create these boundaries around yourself that allows you to attract the right kind of people? These are people that you would prefer or you would desire to have in your circle. But what kind of boundaries does one have to put in place to sort of attract the right kind of people into their space based on your preference? Let me cite an example of why I brought that question up. There's a huge thing on social media now. And of course, I always want us to infuse some current topics in our discussions on this podcast. And there's this Snapchat girl from Nigeria who had dated a very famous Afrobeat artist, Burna Boy. I don't know if you're familiar with the artist and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they got into a squabble and now became a social media thing where she's talking about the fact that he had promised certain things that he did not deliver on and yada, yada, yada. And of course, it just became this whole thing. And everybody and their, all the online in laws and friends and family and everyone has something to say about that. But now there was a discussion being had about this person who had these expectations. And basically, it's centering around basically what she comes across as. So the guy's inability to fulfill whatever promise he had made, people are assuming came from the fact that he did not see her in that light of value to be able to follow through, because she had presented this whole lifestyle of, of course, social media showing it all, and people who build a reputation on using everything other than what God intended for us to use to offer value. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
in that case, I'm looking at it that, well, even as a woman, I'm inclined to kind of support the fact that why would a man want to invest heavily on you in that, on that level, when he sees you as just basically all you have to offer is parts of your body, and that's pretty much it, and you're not just offering it to him. Seems like you're out there offering it to everyone else. That's one scenario. Then another scenario is, I've seen a very huge trend in a few people that I've noticed, and I'm like, this person is actually married now, aren't they? Why do they come across on social media like they're actually putting themselves out there for some type of attention? And these are women that I've noticed that are in second marriages. But then I see them on social media and it seems like they're still like, I'm available. See me, I'm here, I'm single, but married or whatever. So, how do we really help our community understand that what you attract and how you create those boundaries around yourselves will either invite in all of the dogs or will invite in the lions that can come in and rule and reign with you and stuff like that? How do we maneuver that space?
Well, I think a couple of things. For one, I think that how you carry yourself says something because
Mhm,
we are walking billboards is normally what I say. Whatever you put out there is the first thing people see. And that's why I believe in the quote that says first impression last. So you have to, you're advertising who you are, I think, just even the manner in which you carry yourself. And there is a time and place for everything. So yeah, you can have a nice outfit on that is still showing how sensual and sexy and curvaceous that you are without exposing all of your body parts.
mhm,
And then there are times when it may require for you to be exposed. Let's say time and place for everything. Yes, if you're on the beach, I don't really expect to see you in a skirt to your ankle and a t-shirt and a hat and a sunglasses on the beach and some bobby socks. But to each his own. I am not judging. However, I think the way though that how you carry and present yourself, even the mannerism in which you talk to people. You have an interview with somebody, and this can be business, this can be social, whether it's a
mhm,
dinner date, lunch date, whatnot, and you show up maybe 5 minutes early or you show up just on time. That to me is indicating and teaching someone that okay, this girl or this man means business. They respect your time, they also respect other people's time. But if you
mhm,
show up an hour late, 30 minutes late, and you don't even have the decency to call or whatever the case may be, I think that is also communicating to something. It's
mhm,
communicating that you don't respect your time nor the other person's time. So, guys, I'm using to answer Dr. OJ practical things so you guys can understand in our everyday life
mhm,
how you attract the people and how what you're putting out there is
mhm.
also speaking volume to people. If
Yeah.
someone, so when you do these things, it tells someone something about you. If someone asks you, what is it that is important to you? Your answer is two. If the only thing of value you can bring to a conversation is just the latest trend, and it also again it depends on the nature of the conversation, but if
Yeah.
all you can talk about is just the latest trends, the latest outfit, makeup, all of this, you don't know what's going on in current affairs, in politics, you have no idea what is happening even with the mere benefits that is being taken away from you as a citizen and as an individual.
Mhm,
I'm just saying that again is speaking something else to the people that you're attracting. Because if I'm sitting across the table from a gentleman that I am trying to engage with, and we're having a meaningful conversation and we're talking about whether it's family, politics, and you are segueing the conversation and you don't want to touch these things and you don't want to talk about that, then again the self-awareness that is going off in my head about who I am and how I want to be loved and how I need to be stimulated, I'm going
mhm,
to start to wonder, can you engage me? Can you feed me in a way that I need to be fed? Because I don't want to be on the phone calling my boy or my girl, Dr. OJ. We need to talk because I am intellectually starved. I
yes.
cannot have conversation, and the only thing you offer is just being an eye candy or a paycheck. So again, I am saying to you guys, or what I'm trying to express here is the way in which you carry yourself, the things that you invest in. Another practical thing that I can say to you is about your health, your appearance. If you think to yourself, I want somebody with a six pack and you need to look and all of us have, our bodies go through different changes. You're like, you go through
Mhm.
different things in your life. But if your requirements are, I need a man with a six pack and he has to be this certain amount of height, he has to be buff and all of that, then sweetheart, you should not be eating chips and burgers and two piece and all of this stuff 5 days, 7 days a week.
I know.
Vegetable don't know you. Even a walk around the block has never seen you in your neighborhood. A gym membership you don't own, and
Mm-mm.
is need to have perfect teeth. But then again, I am just saying, I am not an advocate. And this brings me back to the Kevin Samuel. A lot of people were angry with Kevin Samuel, and I
Uh-huh.
think it's mainly because of his delivery.
It was
But
I did
not
particularly feel for him because his delivery was just it
No,
was
his I will agree. His delivery was out of line. His delivery was very disrespectful. His
Mhm.
delivery was not in a tone of love. His delivery was yet to be desired. But I will have to say though, OJ, Dr. OJ, if you take away all of those things and you pay attention to the message of what he was trying to communicate,
Mhm.
there is 100% facts into it. There is reality into it, because I will tell you, a lot of women I think are somewhat delusional about our requirements and these lists that we have, but we at the same time are doing nothing to make sure we show up as the other half to match
Oh,
these lists. You want
oh,
a man with an 800 credit score or an A1 credit, but baby, you stay with your credit card, swiping up the register, spending what you don't have, and your credit is jack. You want
mhm.
a man that owns a house, but you own more Louis Vuitton bags and Prada and all of this, and you're in an apartment.
Yeah, you should have below the belt, girl. You
The two don't match. I don't, it doesn't jive for me. You want a man that drives a luxury car and all of this type of things. I'm saying that there has to be balance. Show up as what you want.
Mhm,
If I
mhm.
want certain things, I'm going to make sure I am modeling that. So, and I hope I'm not all over the place in answering your question, because I think
No,
I am right in the ballpark of answering it, to
yeah.
say that whatever it is that you are trying to attract, make sure you are at least 50, 65, 70%, wherever you are, because we're all a work in progress. I think we all are self-improving. We are all learning. We're all growing, and we're all trying to do better. But make sure you are striving for the same things you are requiring. I am a communicator. I love to communicate. So I'm constantly reading and listening to things, reading books, whatnot, to improve my communication skills, to understand the different type of way people communicate, because not everybody are communicators. So that way, when that person shows up, I can say, okay, you're not a talker, but you're a listener. Okay, but okay, so you are actually internalizing and processing everything I'm saying, although you're not responding. Because a week or a couple days later, you're like, you said something, and I'm like, that's a good sign. You start to take note of the green flags, because you're becoming more self-aware about what it is that you like and what works for you. So that's all I'm saying, guys. Check your list, and don't be delusional about some of the celebrities that have these, oh, I pray for this and I did this and I do that, and then you think, oh, I'm just gonna pray for this, I'm gonna pray for that, but you don't think you should do any work. Like that, to me, doesn't even, that don't make sense either. Making a list and then just acting like God is Santa Claus, to me, and you do no work on yourself to welcome the person you want, to me doesn't make sense either. All right, I'm done.
Oh my God, sis. Yes, you definitely did justice to that. That was amazing. A few things that I just really loved about what you said. You said take a note of the green flags because we talk about red flags a lot, but how
Yeah.
do we? I mean, it just occurred to me: red flags, green flags. Okay, so if you're gonna look out for red flags, you should also be looking out for green flags, so that way you can begin to weigh your options. What are your boundaries? What are your non-negotiables? Because
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiables are also a form of boundaries. These are things that you're not going
Yes.
to go outside of. These are things that you're completely not going to bend and kind of compromise on. So everyone needs to know their non-negotiables. And one of the things I want to say, you talking about the fact that women coming up with all these lists and we are so unreasonable. We are so unreasonable. We have become a generation of entitled, unreasonable human beings, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
just just stop that. We need to denormalize that foolishness. Because when people come and say, well, someone asked me one day and said, Doctor, oh, what do you have on your list? I was like, what list? She was like, oh, like your list for a partner. Tell me what you're looking for in a guy so I can look out for you. And I sat across and I thought for a moment, and I'm like, honestly, I don't have a list. But when I meet someone, I am able to discern based on our interaction if they're the ones for me, because different things that I'm looking for that I know will resonate, that I know that I will be comfortable and happy with, that are not beyond my non-negotiables, those things will come out through interactions. But I don't go to the table of relationships meeting someone with a list of things and I'm checking it up. Okay, one, check. I don't have a list. Back in the day when I was ignorant and foolish, when I came out of my divorce, I was still broken, traumatized, bruised. I didn't even realize it. I was making up all these lists, y'all. I was making up all these lists. So I used to be one of the unreasonable people. So, but now I am no longer in that WhatsApp group, and you all need to get out of that WhatsApp group. Women, we need to get all these lists, tear them off, and throw them away, and begin to build our character, begin to build ourselves, begin to invest in who we are becoming. Because now we can actually give ourselves a fighting chance to attract the right people. You know, Zig Ziglar said something. He says, you don't get out of life what you want. You know, just like you talked about the celebrities, like we look up to these celebrities and they come on social
Mhm.
media and sell us these fads, and they are absolute fads. Y'all listen. If your mentor and your teacher is a celebrity on social media, in a kind of way, I feel sorry for you, because you are really just going down the wrong path. They're selling us these fads because unrealistically, it's just like a celebrity that'll come and look at you. They're skinny, thin, and like paperweights, and they're telling you this is what they did you to do it, spend all your money, and you never get those results. Do you really think that's what they're doing? They have access to tools, resources, things that regular everyday people will not have access to. And that is
Mhm.
just the truth about being a celebrity. You get certain things that other people do not get. But the truth of the matter is, as a regular human being on your journey into life and whatever you want, there are certain ways that you just have to go about it. You have to do the work. We
Yeah.
have to become everything. Like my sister said, you want a man with a credit score and you are so irresponsible financially. You want a man with a house and you can't even kind of do it for yourself. Like, it's not about proving anything, it's about coming
Mhm.
and showing up as who you are asking the man to show up as. You are coming
Yes.
and asking him to show up as a six-figure, high income, high value man. Come up and show up as a six-figure, high value, high net worth woman. And let's come toe to toe on that level and deal, on a very level playing field. And I'm not saying it has to be dollar for dollar, cent for cent. It might just be the fact that he might be making so much more, but you are coming with such financial literacy education that's going to help him turn whatever he's making into quadruple value when you come in the picture. That
Mhm.
to me is a lot of value right there. Now you're meeting him where he's at, or he's coming and you're coming, and everyone is just bringing the best versions of themselves. So when you have this list, you are really limiting yourself, because someone will say, well, if I don't have my list, how do I then know the qualities to look out for in a man? The answer is simple. I don't know. And we are not claiming autonomy or knowledge. We don't know it all. But for me, the answer is simple, Stacy. How do I know what to look for in a man? Who have I become? I love God. Does he love God? I want to spend time in prayer a lot. Does he enjoy to do that? I love to serve my community. Does he have a heart for service? I love my children. Will he come in and love them? And maybe if he's bringing his, can we love our children together with that level of passion? I love to serve you. I want to cook for you. I want to do these things for you. What are some of the things that you're going to do for me to reciprocate, even if you can't do the same exact things I'm doing? That is how I begin to vet. And that is how my list begins to play out based on who I am.
Mhm.
So that's just it. So those are some very simple ways for us to set those boundaries, for us to know our non-negotiables. Like it's so easy for us to check it off when we have become these very high level self-aware people. I promise you, being able to establish those strict boundaries. In fact, I think at the end of the day, Stacey, I think there's just certain people who are not going to step up to people like us. Not because we're
No.
saying we're somebody. It's just on period. Like, I'm just saying that with my full chest. There's certain men that's not gonna step up to Stacy. There's certain kinds of men that's not gonna step up to me. On period. That's it. Because our energy is not gonna allow them. What do
But
you think, Stacy?
But you know what, Dr. OJ? They will try, but here what will happen though. Once after a few conversation and they realize the tone of what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the structures of what you're talking about, what
Mm-hmm.
you're communicating is
Mm-hmm.
not what they have, then they disappear. I
They're
will
gonna
tell
know
you.
they're
And
moved in the
that's
wrong
just
building.
very
They're gonna be like, they're moved in the wrong building.
no, I'll give you an example. It's just
Yes,
as very.
my
I
dear.
had somebody tell me I am all in, and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "I'm all in," and I was like, "Okay, we've only been communicating for about a week." And then I started saying to myself, "Okay, God, I have never really had somebody this quickly says I'm all in." I said, "Well, Lord, if this is you, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna say anything."
Mm-hmm.
And then we were having a real in-depth conversation about schedule, and I'm letting know that, listen, I am a very family oriented person. My mother means the world to me. I have a schedule
Mm-hmm.
that I keep.
Mm-hmm.
I i manage her with my sisters. I
Mm-hmm.
also have a podcast that I do with my two good friends. I have structure in my life. I said I try to keep my life full. I said I have a book club that I do once a month. I
Mm-hmm.
get together with my sisters and my some of our girlfriends, and we have sisterhood. So I said I am letting you know that this is what my life look like right now. So that way, whenever it comes to availability, and if I say this is already on the books, or I'm doing this or I'm doing that, you can understand, because this is not news to you.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I do appreciate that, because sometimes you get into things and people don't share, and they don't let you know, and then later on you hear stories. I said, no, I am a communicator. I believe in effectively communicating with someone. I said it's something that I've worked on. I said, not it's not a skill that people just naturally have. It's something you have to want to work on, desire to work on, and actually work at it. So I said, I want to make sure I effectively communicate and that I'm clear, so that way you can make an intelligent decision about who I am and if you want to move forward. After that, Dr. OJ was like, yeah, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And then we were talking about, just relationship in general and what is the point of relationship. And then I express again how I see it and how I perceive it. I'm like, I think relationship, it's more than just relationship. There should be a reason why we're coming together. There
Mm-hmm.
should be purpose in why we're coming together.
You
There
see?
should be, some type of, are we making each other better? Are we coming together so you can help to grow me? I can help to grow you. We can then come together for real, genuine things. And it was, oh, I'm going to call you back. Well, I didn't know he was somewhere before. And it was like, okay, so I'm still in the middle of where I told you I was. I'm going to call you back. And then when I get to my other destination, crickets. So the next day, I'm like, okay, it's unusual. Normally you get good morning or something. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Again, I like to give people grace because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen. So I made the first, communicated first. Good morning. How are you? Hope you had a good evening, whatever, whatever. This, don't forget, I didn't forget that you didn't call like you said you were, which also tells me something. Somebody actually delete and block me because I pointed that out. Because I said, yeah, you said you were gonna call, you never called, and I was like, what happened to the phone call? And then I moved on to also say, sometime in life all you have is your word. Instead of a response, I got a delete and a blocked. Anyways, back to this person.
Because he didn't want to be called out on his mess. Keep it moving. Those are the
What
basic things we're talking about. Hold you accountable, and you go on and delete and block me.
yeah,
Like, really?
but that's what I'm trying to explain the story to Dr. OJ, when you brought up about some people, when I'm saying to you, they will try. So after we had that conversation, as I said, when people establish patterns, you start to realize. So you didn't get the call back like before. You
Mm-hmm.
never got a text like before in
Mm-hmm.
the morning.
Yep.
And I touch base and say, okay, just checking in, touching base. Oh, thank you. And that was simply it. And then it's been 3 days, nothing.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what that tells me is, again, guys, about setting boundaries, being
Mm-hmm.
self-aware, knowing who you are,
Yes.
because I am self-aware to an extent and know myself and know what I want and what I'm looking for, and is
Mm-hmm.
able to intelligently communicate that and be clear about it. I
Yes.
think something happened in that conversation that we were had that went off in his head, that okay, although you just said I am all in because I love what you're about, now
Mm-hmm.
you're realizing she's not playing, she's not for play, she's
Mm-hmm.
consistent in her conversation, she is putting, saying the hammer down about, this is who I am. I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not fake. I'm not a facade. What you see is what you get. If
Mm-hmm.
you wake me up 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's the same Stacy. There is
Mm-hmm.
consistency across the board. You can call anybody and ask them behind my back or in front of me. It's the same thing. And I think some part of that conversation scared him. 3 days, crickets, nada,
Boom.
nothing. So I just told you guys all that story, and it's transparent and let you know all in my business, just to say they can try. But if
Yeah.
you make your boundaries clear about who you are, you know what it also does? It weed out the people that are trying
Mm-hmm.
to run games.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
also one of the things. It's also a protecting mechanism, whether you believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It weed out those people that are trying to pull a wool over your head,
Yes, it's
because
true.
people can try to pretend for so long,
Mm-hmm.
but if you give them enough time, their true color is going to show up.
Look, my people say something, right? I'm a Yoruba girl, and I'm gonna say it then translate. It says Efiniwa Tobayo Marujade. That means behavior, character. It's like
Mhm.
smoke. You can't hide smoke. No matter how much you try to cover it up, you try to lock it up, it's gonna come out. It will burst out somewhere because it's air. So that is what character is. And I feel like as we're rounding up this podcast today, it's just been an amazing topic, by the way. I love every area that we touched. One thing I'm going to leave you guys with is this, like, to know yourself is to grow yourself. And as you're growing yourself, you're leading yourself in the path that you intend to go to get to your destination, which is your destiny. And on that journey, you're fulfilling your purpose along the way. And as you're doing those things, you are inevitably creating boundaries around yourself. But the most important things, and some of the difficult things that we find, that I can tell you, and Stacy, and I love this podcast because we get real vulnerable with you guys.
Mhm.
I have fallen short of maintaining some boundaries that I set for myself, some standards that I felt I held so high and I really felt was so important to me. I have found myself in situations because, there come along some people, they be like on the front line for the devil, getting
Mhm.
you to compromise on your boundaries. And all of us have fallen for that. But one thing that I'm learning is just grace. Dr. Oh, grace, grace, grace. Forgive yourself. Yes, that happened. It did happen. Acknowledge it. But we keep moving forward to do better. So, restructuring those boundaries, reaffirming ourselves within those boundaries, it's a protective shield. My sister mentioned it. It protects us, not just from ourselves, but it protects us from a lot of things. Imagine how many heartbreaks a lot of us would have avoided if we really maintained certain boundaries. Like, just a thought I'm going to leave you with. Imagine how many mistakes and errors and loss that we have experienced. And of course, they say, oh, we've learned a lesson. Yeah, but there's certain lessons that God did not intend for us to even learn. Like, He didn't have any plan for us to learn those hard, traumatizing, soul wrecking lessons. He had no intention. That's why He put the guidelines in place for us to follow. And of course, we follow them and we build character around it. And we follow through with establishing and reestablishing and reaffirming it with every interaction we have. We would avoid a lot of things. At least I know that I would have avoided a lot of things.
Mhm.
So today, I'm like, look, these boundaries, they're here to stay. And of course, going forward, we're always going to talk about it. We're always going to have conversations around it. So we want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? What kind of boundaries have you had a problem maintaining or establishing in your life? And how can we possibly, within our singles community, help you? We want to hear from you. So, yes, guys, that's all I have for you today. Stacy, close us out. What are your thoughts for our people today?
Once again, guys, thank you for going down this journey with us and for listening. And again, comment, guys. Let us know if whatever we're talking about is meaningful. It's making an impact you can resonate with, or you can identify with something. But it's really simple, guys. As I said before, the first step is, don't forget, guys, you have to take some time to spend with yourself. You have to figure out who you are. You have to do the hard work and decide what are the things that I can accept and the things that I cannot accept. My mama used to say the things you can live with and the things you can't live with on the island. So basically, guys, you have to figure those things out. And then once you figure that out, then you start implementing it. And it's okay, baby step. We're all growing. It's
Mhm.
all taking us a little bit longer to figure things out. It's taking us time to get it all together, but because we're all work in progress, guys. So never forget that. As Dr. OJ said, you give yourself grace, forgive yourself, start again, pick up the pieces, move on. However, I implore you guys to create healthy boundaries in your life. And again, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again as I'm closing. Don't think about it just in a romantic sense, because a lot of people only think about a lot of things in a romantic sense. And that is why, in your other aspect of your life, you're being mistreated, disrespected, taken advantage of, and people just simply just take you for granted. It's sometimes it's because those boundaries are not set. So look at all relationship, set those boundaries, show up as how you want also somebody to show up for you in your life, so you can
Mhm.
also too attract the right person. And again, guys, subscribe, like, comments, share, touch base with us on Instagram. And this has been a wonderful first month. It's March 1st, guys. It's the beginning of a brand new month. We thank God for it. I am glad we have lived to see it. And we love you. And come back, and we'll be back next week for another episode, another great topic. And we can't wait to talk to you guys again.
What she said. Bye, guys.